Hello and welcome to As I See It. In this video, I wish to address the recent movie that has come out called Sound of Freedom. It is based upon the life and experience of Tim Ballard, who used to work for the Homeland Security Agency and then later founded Operation Underground Railroad, which is an anti-human trafficking organization. And the movie itself is based upon some of his experiences when he transitioned from working for the Homeland Security Department to founding his own organization and attempting to bring about awareness for people regarding the plague that is known as human trafficking. It's a worthy movie. I definitely recommend anyone who has not gone and seen it yet to go and to see it. I will caution people about the movie if you have a weak stomach or you're really sensitive to things, it may not be the movie for you. That being said, it is done tastefully, so I'm not saying that you're going to be squeamish from the scenes that they show, because they don't show anything that is particularly graphic by any means, right? You don't see any illicit material or graphic material throughout the movie, so that's not the issue. The issue is just the concept of human trafficking and child exploitation, especially for sexual purposes. And so the topic is really heavy and really dark in that sense. So you won't see any visuals that will, be inappropriate, but the whole concept behind the movie and the awareness that it's trying to bring about is definitely concerning, but it's also something that is definitely worth becoming aware of. And I think that's the whole point of the movie, is really to bring us to a point of awareness of a really evil and disgusting practice amongst many human beings, unfortunately, in the world that we live in today. And oftentimes they will refer to this as modern slavery. And with that in mind, I mean, if you look at it as what it is, that it is slavery, not legalized slavery, obviously, but slavery nonetheless. There are more people enslaved today than when slavery was legal. That's not to take anything away from the history of the slave trade in the Americas and worldwide, but it's the reality of the situation for today. And that's really what the movie's trying to bring awareness about. And like I said, it's worth seeing. It's an entertaining movie. It's really well done. But like I said, it's not necessarily for everyone. So I saw it. I went and saw it with my brother-in-law Friday night. And we both thought the movie was well done. We really liked the movie. It's sad. It's dark. It's heavy. But there's also a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. I'm not going to talk much about the movie itself because I don't want to give anything away for anyone who wants to go and see it. And like I said, I recommend people going to see it. Of course, my wife did not go and see it. She will not go and see it. When she thinks about issues like this, it becomes really depressing for her and so forth. And so there's no need for her to be depressed. She's already familiar with the situation, and we donate to organizations that fight against human trafficking. So it would be an unnecessary burden for her, so to speak. But anyone who is not familiar with human trafficking, this is something that will at least put it on the radar. And the hope is that people will do their own research and discover some things for themselves. And become educated on it, and to spread the word so that we can all join together and do our small part to eradicate this evil that exists. And so that's the real goal. Now, I do want to address some criticisms that have come out in the media against the film and against the organization, Operation Underground Railroad. So I'm just going to read a few passages from different articles that I've read, and I want to respond to those. Just to kind of put down some of these criticisms that have arisen in, various forms of media. So the first that I'm going to address is from an article from The Guardian. The author is Charles Brunesco. He says, type the word "sound of freedom" into Twitter. Decent people who wish to live good, happy lives should under no circumstances actually do this. I could not disagree more with what Mr. Brunesco is saying here. I think that decent people who do wish to live good, happy lives should research this movie and should research human trafficking and probably should go out and see the movie. Like I said, it's not for everyone, but the message is for everyone, right? And it's a non-political thing. It's not about left or right. It's not about liberal or conservative, religious or non-religious. This is a human issue, right? So it's something that really people from all walks of life should be able to rally around. And I'm not saying that you even have to support Operation Underground Railroad, which is one human trafficking organization that fights against human trafficking. Right? There's plenty of others, so you can research and support whatever organization you want to help stop human trafficking. I highly recommend, doing that. Do your research. You can even talk with your local law enforcement and see what resources they use and have and what they would recommend, and get involved in whatever way that you can. All right. This is a problem that's going to take a lot of people, doing just small little things to help eradicate the problem. Okay, he continues. Following that money leads back to a more unsavory network of astroturfed boosterism among the far-right fringe, a constellation of paranoids now attempting to spin a cause célèbre out of a movie with vaguely simpatico leanings. The uninitiated may not pick up on the red yarn and corkboard subtext pinned into a mostly straightforward extraction mission in South America, pretty much taken with a faint whiff of something noxious in the air. Those tuned into the eardrum perforating frequency of QAnon, however, have heeded a clarion call that leads right to the multiplex. So you can see that this particular author here obviously despises the movie Sound of Freedom and despises the organization Operation Underground Railroad and anyone associated with it. It seems that his biases blind him to seeing what, the real issue is, which is human trafficking, right? And he decides to basically say that it's only far right-wing individuals that will enjoy this film and that are rallying around it. I hope not, because it's not designed for right-wing audiences. It's designed for human audiences, right? So this author is very cynical, and it shows in his writing, and he's very contemptuous towards the political right. Which, to me, it's foolish, because the movie isn't about gaining, converts to the political right or anything like that. And then he makes these connections to QAnon, which the movie has zero connections to QAnon, right? And so it's just funny to me that he has this kind of attitude that, you have these QAnon conspiracy theorists, right? And, we don't want to get dragged in with these crazy, kooky conspiracy theorists. And yet he's promoting his own conspiracy theory that this movie is somehow propaganda for QAnon or something, right? And so it's just ironic to me, right, that he's spouting conspiracy theories about this movie, being concerned about conspiracy theories, okay? Let's see, he continues in his article, another part, where he says, the trafficking follows no motivation more elaborate than the servicing of rich predators, eliding all talk of body part black markets and the precious organic biochemical of andronicom, harvested as a satanic key to eternal life. The first rule of QAnon, you don't talk about QAnon where the normals can hear you. Right, so once again, he's saying it's basically a dog whistle to the QAnon community, which I do not agree with. I think that this movie is made for the mainstream and for all of us to raise awareness about. And it just seems to me that the author here is a bit paranoid about QAnon and for whatever reason is creating his own conspiracy theory that the movie is connected to QAnon. It's kind of bizarre to me, right, as a critical thinker as I read this article. He further states that our hero Ballard, by the way, went on to found the paramilitary rescue squad Operation Underground Railroad, a group criticized as arrogant, unethical, and illegal by the authorities. He never cites who these authorities are. That is always a red flag for me when reading nonfiction, right? Making blanket statements that support your position without any clear citation of evidence rings hollow, right, to me. So he has this statement, right, that supposed authorities think that Operation Underground Railroad is arrogant, unethical, and illegal. I'd like to know who these authorities are that he's referring to, so that I can make a judgment regarding the ethics of these sources, right? Okay, so another article that came out from Slate, the author is Sam Adams. He criticizes the film as follows, and the organization of Operation Underground Railroad as an extension, right? He says, according to Foreign Policy, a group of Dominican girls, O.U.R, rescued in 2014, were released without rehabilitation or support a few weeks later. Meg Conley, who accompanied Ballard on that raid, wrote for Slate in 2021 about her experience and reported that anti-trafficking work, the kind that really works, doesn't have an immediate satisfaction. It's slow and steady. There are no starring turns. Okay, so the thing that's interesting about this is that they're criticizing this organization, Operation Underground Railroad, which is the organization that Tim Ballard founded. The movie is based upon Tim Ballard. What they're using is one example from 2014 stating that, the people that were rescued were released without rehabilitation or support or what have you. Okay, that definitely can be concerning. I could see that. My concern, however, is that they only point this out from 2014. There's no reports of this from 2015, from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. There's a lot of years since 2014. So the best that they can do is to say that, they released these people without rehabilitation or support, in 2014. So it must be a bad organization. Well, let's put this in perspective. Operation Underground Railroad was formed in October of 2013. So at the end of 2013. So in other words, they're up and running in their first year in 2014. When you first take on a mission of this sort, right, when you organize an organization and so forth, you're going to have problems and wrinkles and things as you try to figure it out. Nothing like this has ever been done before in the private sector, at least not the way that they are operating. And so, yeah, you're gonna have some mistakes. You're gonna have some things that you didn't realize were needs, or you don't have the resources, to do. If you watch the film, you see that Tim Ballard quits his job at Homeland Security and immediately is, engaging in these types of missions. They have since come out with aftercare programs and have worked diligently with any country that they are working with local law enforcement, and also making sure that they have connections with aftercare, within that country. And so they vet different, organizations and things that can help those victims who are freed from human trafficking. So this criticism rings really hollow to me. If you're using an example from the first year of the organization, and this is a bad organization, look at what happened in the first year that they were running, and you can't find any examples since then to criticize, really? That's what you're going to come out with? That just seems like shoddy journalism to me. To me, it seems like this author has a bone to pick, a personal bone to pick, instead of offering critical thinking and critical analysis, which is what I hope that we do, that we look at this critically, right? Search it out for yourself. I'm not saying to believe things blindly. I like to read all perspectives. That's why I'm reading stuff that, is, in support of the movie, and things that are not in support of the movie, things that are in support of the organization, things that are not in support of the organization. It's good to have a balance, but also to think critically and to challenge assumptions that are made, as we see here. Okay, the next one comes from Rolling Stone. The author is Miles Klee. He states, Ballard, Caviezel, and others of their ilk had primed the public to accept Sound of Freedom as a documentary rather than delusion by fomenting moral panic for years over this grossly exaggerated epidemic of child sex trafficking, much of it funneling people into conspiracist rabbit holes and QAnon communities. In short, I was at the movies with people who were there to see their worst fears confirmed. Okay, so once again, this smacks of personal bias from the author. When you're referring to individuals as their ilk, right, you can see from the language, from the diction that is being used, that this person has some sort of personal issue, either with the actors, with the person, with the organization, with the fight against human trafficking. I don't know what exactly it is that they have a bone to pick with, but they talk about it being a grossly exaggerated epidemic. This person obviously didn't do any research. I'm going to share with you at the end the statistics that come from the State Department, the Department of State of the United States. And you can see that it's not grossly exaggerated, right? If anything, it's it's not even on most people's radars, right? What's occurring and how widespread that it is. It's definitely not over exaggerated by any stretch of the imagination. It just seems like some people take talking points from people without doing any research for themselves. And it's kind of sad, right? I'll get to those numbers in a little bit, and you'll see just how ridiculous this statement is. Okay, he goes on to say, there is visible suffering all around us in America. There are poor and unhoused and people brutalized or killed by police. There are mass shootings, lack of health care, climate disasters, and yet over and over the far right turns to these sordid fantasies about godless monsters hurting children. Now, as in the 1980s satanic panic, they won't even face the fact that most kids who suffer sexual abuse are harmed not by a shadowy cabal of strangers, but at the hands of a family member. To know thousands of adults will absorb Sound of Freedom, this vigilante fever dream, and come away thinking themselves better informed on a hidden civilization crisis, well, it's profoundly depressing. Worse still, they'll want to spread the word. Well, yes, I do want to spread the word, because what you're saying here in this piece, right, is that there's not an issue, or that the issue is so small and that it doesn't matter, and that the only things that matter are things that are getting into the public, psyche, if you will. via the mainstream media, right? So the mainstream media focuses on mass shootings. How many mass shootings do we have a year? They're horrific, they're terrible, and they're on the rise. I will admit that. But the people affected by mass shootings is minuscule compared to the people that are involved in human trafficking and the victims of human trafficking. It dwarfs these issues that he talks about that are like, hey, these are the important issues that we should be focusing on. We shouldn't be distracted by human trafficking. Are you kidding me? It's a false equivalency to begin with. First of all, why can't we focus on multiple things, right? I mean, it's not like we have a limit of things that we can focus on to address within our society and within our culture and within the world. So it's not hey, human trafficking against mass shootings. We got to pick one or the other. No, you can address both. There's nothing wrong with addressing both, right? And then to say that those issues are a bigger issue simply because they get more airtime in the news, that more people are talking about it, right? Just because more people are aware of it, therefore it is a bigger problem. Well, that's kind of the whole point of this movie, is to draw attention to the fact that this is an overwhelming problem that is widely unknown. That's the whole point of the movie, to help us to research that and to bring it into the forefront so that we can combat human trafficking. And the numbers that I'll get to in just a minute just totally eviscerate this guy's perspective, right? Saying that it's just this, it's a small, number of people that are, affected by human trafficking. No, it is probably far greater than everything that he mentions here combined, right? As far as the number of people that it affects. Okay, and I'll get to that with the numbers from the State Department in just a few minutes. Okay, and then next we have from the Washington Post, Herb Scribner and Will Sommer. They say that the entire premise of its operations, that local law enforcement will take over when the dirty work has been done, is dangerously naive. So this is speaking of Operation Underground Railroad. The prominent human trafficking scholar Ann Gallagher wrote for Huffington Post in 2015, "Why are police in Mexico, the Dominican Republic, and Colombia not arresting child sex traffickers if they are so easy to find? The simplest explanation is law enforcement complicity in such crimes." Well, yeah, I'm sure that in many countries, maybe even in our own here in the United States, that there may be times where law enforcement is complicit with some of these actions and organizations and traffickers. Does that mean that we don't try to combat the issue? That just seems like foolish logic to me. Right? Just because there's some corrupt people in positions of power does not mean that we do not fight against corruption and evil and wrongdoing, right? And try to help people, right? To improve humanity and society. And that's just frustrating. And once again, they're pointing to 2015, right? The early years of the organization. As the years have passed, the organization, Operation Underground Railroad, has become more sophisticated as an organization, has made more connections with different groups and organizations and law enforcement and aftercare, facilities and so forth in so many countries that they work with. It just seems that the criticism is coming from the early years of the organization, which is, any organization, it has a learning curve, right? It takes time to figure things out and to figure, hey, what we thought was best or working well needs to be tweaked, right? We need to do this better. We're now seeing where some of the weaknesses and the holes are, and we're going to address that. And of course, they're doing that, but they're picking bones from the early days of the organization. which is just crazy, right? So once again, Operation Underground Railroad was founded in October 2013, right? Where's the criticism after 2015, right? Why aren't these journalists talking about these criticisms, from more recent years, right? Think a little bit. Critical thinking, people. Let me just talk about what you can find easily, which many of these journalists that I'm quoting from apparently failed to do, right? This took me like 1 minute, a simple search, right, on the numbers for human trafficking. I skipped down past everything that was, private organizations and so forth. So there's a lot out there. And I looked straight for government numbers. And so the first website that I came with government credentials, which would be a trustworthy source, I think, for most people, unless they're like completely like way out there on conspiracy theories with the government, right? I'm not that far gone. I think that our government has its issues, that there are parts that we cannot trust, but there are others that we definitely can, right? I'm not that cynical by any stretch of the imagination. I think that, yes, there are good people that work in government, and yes, there are bad people that work in government here in the United States and in every country of the world, right? There are really good elected officials from both political parties, right? And there are also really bad elected officials from both political parties. And within all the different departments, right, that government, runs. You can find good people and bad people anywhere. That's just a part of life. They're going to grow up together. It's the wheat and tares. For those of you that know your Bible, what that kind of means. The wheat grows with the tares, right? It would be nice if we could easily separate them out, but we can't always do that, right? Okay, so let's take a look. This can be found at www.state.gov/human trafficking --about-human trafficking. Okay, so this is from the United States Department of State. This is what they say on their official website, right? Human trafficking, also called trafficking in persons, has no place in our world. As both a grave crime and a human rights abuse, it compromises national and economic security, undermines the rule of law, and harms the well-being of individuals and communities everywhere. It is a crime of exploitation. Traffickers profit at the expense of their victims by compelling them to perform labor or to engage in commercial sex in every region of the United States and around the world. With an estimated 27.6 million victims worldwide at any given time, human traffickers prey on people of all ages, backgrounds, and nationalities, exploiting them for their own profit. Okay, so this isn't just focusing on child sex trafficking, granted. This is, human trafficking overall, whether it's for labor, whether it's for sex, whether it's for something else, right? Where somebody is basically enslaved for somebody else's profit. And worldwide, it's estimated at 27.6 million victims. This is no small thing. This is, like these journalists here are trying to say, oh, it's not a big deal, right? We should be more focused on, mass shootings in America or, this, that, or the other. Really? Really? Come on, man. Seriously, do a little research, right? And if you read further down the page, there's a section titled How Many Victims of Human Trafficking Are There? It'll break it down to the estimated numbers for, sex trafficking and so forth, right? It reads in this section, it is hard to find reliable statistics related to human trafficking. The quality and quantity of data available are often hampered by the hidden nature of the crime, challenges in identifying individual victims, gaps in data accuracy and completeness, and significant barriers regarding the sharing of victim information among various stakeholders. For these reasons, data and statistics may not reflect the full nature of or scope of the problem. International Labor Organization. The International Labor Organization, the ILO, and the Walk Free Foundation, in partnership with the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, released global estimates of modern slavery in September of 2022. This report estimates that at any given time in 2021, approximately 27.6 million people were in forced labor. Of these, 17.3 million are exploited in the private sector, 6.3 million in forced commercial sexual exploitation, 6.3 million in forced commercial sexual exploitation. Now, of course, this includes adults as well as children, right? So they don't parse that out. But 6.3 million people forced into sex slavery, right? And how many of those are minors? It's astounding. Whether they're minors or not, it is astounding. It's craziness. And you just want to sweep it under the rug as a right-wing conspiracy? Seriously? Come on. Come on, we can do better. Seriously. We can do better. Okay, continuing. It says, and 3.9 million in forced labor imposed by state. The definition of forced labor used in this report is based on ILO Forced Labor Convention, 1930 number 29, which states in Article 2.1 that forced labor is all work or service which is exacted from any person under the menace of any penalty and for which the said person has not offered himself voluntarily. Okay, so there you have it. Go see Sound of Freedom if you haven't seen it yet. It's a good movie. And the message is really important. If you don't go see the movie, at least do a little research on human trafficking. Like I said, some people won't be able to stomach the content of the movie. People like my wife, and I totally understand that, and I totally support my wife not seeing the movie. But that doesn't mean that we should just turn away and, turn a blind eye to a problem that is plaguing the world at this time, right? And so you don't have to see the movie. You don't have to get that graphic into detail, but you can do a little bit of research, read some stuff that won't be, it's heavy, but it won't be as heavy, right? Reading it from a page, right? Doing a little bit of research and finding what you can do to help eradicate the problem. And that's the whole point. And that's one of the things that I love about the ending of the movie, right? Some people have criticized this as well, that at the end of the movie, they ask people, with a QR code to perhaps pay it forward for other people that can't afford to see the movie, which I think is perfectly legit. There's a lot of people that, quite frankly, cannot afford to buy a movie ticket. And so why should they be left out of such an important issue, right? So we can purchase those tickets, and other people who may not have the means can claim those tickets and can go see the movie and, have an experience in the theater, and also become informed. It's more of a jumping off point. It's not an end point by the end of the movie, right? And I thought this was in good taste. They didn't promote Operation Underground Railroad. I saw, one person who was posting saying that they were disappointed that they didn't give, the information on where to go to combat human trafficking, at the end of the movie, instead just asking to pay forward for other people to see it. Well, the point is that hopefully you get moved to do your own research, right? And even though this movie is about someone who founded and organized Operation Underground Railroad, it doesn't mean that you have to go that route. And if they gave just that, at the end, hey, do this for Operation Underground Railroad, then it, to me, would seem like, well, this is just a promo for that organization. But instead, it allows you to do the research and to choose for yourself how you want to do it. If you research Operation Underground Railroad and you like it, yeah, you can contribute to it, right? That'd be great. Maybe you research and find other organizations. There are a lot of organizations that fight human trafficking, and maybe you want one that maybe is less controversial according to, these journalists here. Well, that's fine. I have no issue with that. You want to join another organization, that's fine. I know that like Ashton Kutcher, he has an organization that fights human trafficking, and there's a whole lot of them out there that do that, and you can research it and find one that you like and that you want to support. You could always talk with your local law enforcement and see if there's anything that you can do to help locally, right? I mean, you can decide if it's something that you want to combat in your local community, if it's something that you want to combat in your state, if it's something that you want to combat in your own country, if it's something that you want to combat internationally, right? Do the research, learn for yourself, become informed, and figure out for yourself, what you can do, you know, to help eradicate this evil. We're not expecting you to become Rambo, right? We're not expecting you to donate your life savings or anything, but each of us can do little things which collectively will help, whether it's a small donation, whether it's a donation of time or resources, whether it is spreading the word, making people aware, and just being vigilant of signs of human trafficking and so forth, and reporting and things like that. I mean, there's a lot that you can learn, a lot that you can do. And if we all do this together, we can make a dent in this horrific plague that is plaguing the world, at this time. Anyhow, I think I've spoken long enough. Good movie. Go see it. Do your research. Don't listen to these critics that are trying to bash the movie and to bash organizations such as Operation Underground Railroad. Until next time.